This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Schifrin, and I'm bringing the meeting of the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission of Thursday, March 6th to order at 7:04 p.m. Sorry for the slight delay on my technical end. Jason, do you want to do the roll or do you want me?
No, I can do it. I'll do voting members first, and then guests, and then staff.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Okay. Excuse me. Alan Pease.
Present.
Amanda Reed.
Present.
Barbara Yoakum.
Here.
Doug Thornton.
Here.
Jeff Tillotson.
Present.
Mike Corbacero.
Present.
Kathy Norton.
Here.
Kyle Nardowitz.
Here.
Laura Schifrin.
Here.
Peter Cunningham.
Yeah, present.
Rebecca Bielecki.
Here.
Robert Schwartz.
Here.
Guests, we have Roland Lamelot, the auditor. He's on the phone.
I'm here.
And then staff, Brian Doherty.
Present.
Myself, Jason Stanton. Christopher McNamara.
Here.
Glenn Eaton. He's muted right now. We'll come back to him. I know he said that he might be a little late or something, so you might be just running a minute behind. Moving on to Holly Ford.
Present.
Aaron Chapman.
Here.
And I believe that is it.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
This meeting will be recorded to ensure we have an accurate record of our discussion. If anyone has any concerns about being recorded, please let us know. Hearing none, this meeting is being held under Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, signed by Governor Healy on March 29th, 2023, allowing local and regional governments to hold public meetings remotely or in hybrid fashion. All votes will be taken by roll call. 2. MRPC minutes of February 6, 2025. February 6th. I saw those. And February 26th. Were sent to
I'll make a motion to approve. Rebecca Bielecki.
Thank you, Rebecca, for both.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing and seeing none. Jason, will you take the vote?
Alan Pease.
Aye.
Amanda Reed.
Aye.
Barbara Yoakum.
Aye.
Doug Thornton.
Aye.
Jeff Tillotson.
Aye.
Mike Corbacero.
Aye.
Kathy Norton.
Aye.
Kyle Nardowitz.
Aye.
Laura Schifrin.
Aye.
Peter Cunningham.
Jeff Cunningham, aye.
Rebecca Bielecki.
Aye.
And Robert Schwartz.
Schwartz, aye.
Thank you, Jason. Robert, do you want to take the cash schedule, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Schedule as of 2/1 through 2/28/26. Opening balances $577,556.27. Cash receipts. There's a transfer from the checking to the debit account of $6,000 or $8,000. $120.42 interest. Total receipts $191,548.42. Total cash on hand before this warrant $769,104.69, less the amount of the warrant and all cash disbursements, $197,080.06. Balance on hand after this warrant is $572,024.63. Total on deposit is $572.24.63. That is my report.
Thank you, Robert. Are there any questions? Hearing and seeing none, I'll take a motion to accept the cash schedule as presented, subject to audit. Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Thank
So
you.
seconded by Corpusero.
Thank you. Roll call, Jason, please.
Alan Pease,
Aye.
Andrew Reed,
Aye.
Barbara Yocum,
Aye.
Jeff Thornton,
Aye.
Chuck Tillotson,
Aye.
Guy Corbacero,
Aye.
Kathy Norton,
Aye.
Al Nardowitz,
Aye.
Laura Schifrin,
Aye.
Peter Cunningham,
Cunningham, aye.
Rebecca Bialecki,
Aye.
Robert Schwartz.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right, now we'll have the annual audit presentation. Roland, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. Last year I had mentioned that for those of you who have been here for prior audit presentations, some of the discussion can get repetitive, oftentimes redundant, seem to be covering the same issues generally. The good news this year, there were no new GASB pronouncements. That is the governmental board that makes up all the accounting policies and procedures that you need to follow. So there was none of that this year affecting the statements of the audit. However, there will be a focus at the end on two topics that have been covered annually. And I just want to have one last go at those during this presentation. The audit was handled totally remotely this year. Chris was gracious enough to forward along whatever we requested. Gave us the opportunity to review what transpired during the fiscal year as far as any changes in funding sources, staffing levels, and any unusual activity that we're not used to seeing. We have provided all materials necessary in order to perform the procedures developed in our audit programs. The audit reports reflect an unmodified opinion on the financial position. No findings have reported on the areas of internal control and compliance. The focus, as it usually is to review financial activity for changes in consistency with prior years, usually by analytical review or just by knowing the agency and seeing things that just are quite different from the year before. I'm going to be going over specific pages from what I call the bound audit, not all 42 pages of them, but just primarily the footnotes. As partially a review of old items, the effect of a change in what was called a settlement of contract receivables payables with MassDOT last year. Some of you may remember that just before the audit work was finished, there was another RPA that had some contact with MassDOT and indicated they were not going to be tracking contracts as they expired as to who owed who money. And also be making a comment to the change in the single audit filing requirements that are effective with fiscal 26. Now, the points of the discussion are going to be noted by some markings to make it easier for reference and to follow along. And the same approach will be with the 5-year statements. Now, the first page I want to pull up, I've given Chris some just specific pages so that we're not kind of flowing through all of them. I don't know if he had put those up there that had the markings on them. The first one is page 23.
Just give me 1 second to confirm I'm on the right thing.
Yeah, keep going up.
I don't
Okay,
see any markings.
That is the page. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I sent over.
Jason,
There was a
I
page
s-
23 at the bottom.
sent it to you. I just emailed it to you. Yes, that.
Yeah, okay, there it is.
Okay.
There it is. Okay, that's the one. I was going to say there should be an arrow pointing on that particular page. Now, the significance of this page is just to acknowledge the state's inability to receive this issue that dates back to 2014. This has been ongoing dispute with about 6 or 7 RPAs, I believe, and the state relative to the fact that in the beginning, MRPC never made any contributions. It was always the state paying their portion of the money to the retirement. And I believe they were audited by the feds at that point in time and told that they were violating Chapter 32 and that they had to go back and make these computations. And what drove these letters that the state had been sending to you every year, indicating how much they had paid for retirement benefits to individuals that had retired from the Planning Commission. Now, I said we're going to cover this later on, so that's the only reason I wanted to put this page up there. The number was $758,000. They had stopped sending us letters a couple of years ago. So if they had and we packed them on, that would be well over $1 million. If you can just move on, next page, page 24. Now, the reason I bring this one up is that anybody who's new to the board, MRPC is required to present MEC's financial information due to the extent of control that MRPC has over MEC. The activity of MEC is minimal, as are the effects of the combined amounts. This is what they have on their books, and you can see from obviously what MRPC's numbers are that there's very little activity that's been going on for the past 3 years in MEC, but because of the connection that you have, MEC is considered a component unit of the Planning Commission. I don't know if you want to ask questions as I go along, or do you want to, that's fine. I can answer anything if you have any. If not, we'll just go on to page 34. Page 34, the reason I bring this up, you'll see the circled amount at the end, the $5,315. It's called unreimbursed costs. Those are the expenditures that were made by MEC during the year that for purposes of calculating the indirect costs are not included, because obviously they happen independently of the activity of the Planning Commission. Next page is 32. And the reason I circled this one, it's out of sequence as the prior 2 pages were related. The specific reference on here is to the MassDOT contract. Now, this is what I was talking about before. In prior years, that would have been 0 as a receivable or a payable, and would have been set up pending state review of completed contracts. As I mentioned last year, they stopped doing that, and we had made an adjustment to the books last year to eliminate any grants payable or grants receivable. Now, this year, it's unfortunate that the way they have structured things, you either make money or you lose money. Now, with this contract, for the time period that it ended, because it fluctuates over 2 years, and the indirect cost rates can fluctuate pretty dramatically, you ended up losing $90,000 on that contract. A pretty good size of change. But like I say, before, under the old way of accounting for it, you wouldn't have seen that, because it would have been listed with all the other contracts that had ended. Either they were 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, that went back for probably 25 years, but that was closed down last year. I just wanted to bring that to your attention that obviously that's one of the biggest contracts, and you got to be careful as to what goes on in that. Now, you'll see in the next column over, there's a MassDOT contract there as well that comes out to break even. So what that is doing is it's carrying either a deferred revenue or an unbilled cost component in the financial statements. It breaks down to 0. So now this contract, no doubt, is probably over, because it would have ended in September of 24. So that would be reported on next year, and then you'll have a determination of, for that particular contract, whether you made money or you lost money. hopefully it's going to turn out in a positive direction to recover some of what was lost in the prior one. Not hearing any questions on that, I'm going to move to page 38. I'm going pretty quickly through our 42-page statements, but I just want to give you the highlights and get to the two most important points that I'm pretty much saving for the end. Now, this is what I had mentioned earlier on about the schedule of federal awards, which is reported on in a single audit. And what you have to do is you have to expend currently $750,000, which you easily did. You'll have that same expenditure threshold for fiscal 25. However, when fiscal 26 comes along, that number will go up to $1 million. So if you have any situations on this where you might have a contract that doesn't get renewed, say the Safe Roads is not there in the subsequent year or in fiscal 26, or for some reason any of the other contracts have reduced funding to them, you may not be required to have a single audit. Now we're going to go into the summary, the 5-year statement, which is the next page, should be. There it is, okay, statement of net position. We got a couple of items marked there. I just want to go over things that I see just as a purpose of bringing them up. You see the cash quite a bit lower than what it was in 23 and 22 and so on, made up by the fact that there were a larger number of receivables just waiting to be collected. And as soon as that money came in, obviously the cash position would get, would look a lot better than what it does. That is number one. Number two, the accrued payroll. I bring that up because there's a change in the handling of accrued vacation. Essentially, the sense was that the old accrual was replaced by a new one. The prior position was based on the point that the full balance would be paid at termination. So I always was under the assumption that, well, they're not going to get this money until they leave. So why would it be current? Why wouldn't it be long-term? They changed an accounting policy relative to this the year before, and they indicated that essentially what you're doing is you're swapping out old vacation with new vacation. So the old vacation is what is considered as being taken as you use it during the year, and the new vacation takes its place. Kind of a silly concept, but I guess it works. The number is there, what the accrual is, and that's pretty much really what matters. On number 3, you'll see the net OPEB liability. It's just scroll up a little bit more. It's in a couple of locations on that page. I guess, yeah, okay. It just continues to ruin your total net position. You'll see that at the bottom of the first page. That's your $591,000 deficit position. Again, as I always indicate, it makes it look like you don't know how to run an agency. And if you had the retirement liability in there, it would look way worse than that. So we're fortunate at this point that this is the only one that is being reported. And this is reported regardless of whether you're funding it or you're not. It's just that you have a plan.
Excuse me. Yeah, Peter Cunningham and Groton. Real quickly, Jason, is there a way you can make that a little bit larger? Perfect. Excellent.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. I meant to ask,
No,
sorry.
It's the glasses. They're cheap readers.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Just go down to the next one, Jason. This is the statement of revenue and expenditures, and you'll see that the total revenues are up significantly. They're up 32% from 2023. And you'll see that the other number 1 there where the consultants are highlighted, and that's partially driven by the increased use of consultants, because obviously the fees that are the revenues generated from the consultants are up in that 1845 figure. So there's about $1.5 million of work generated, and there's $348,000 of revenue that is brought on because you're using contractors and substituting your payroll for theirs. Scroll down a little bit more, we're going to go to number 2, which is the operating deficiency. And this is the real accounting results unaffected by the OPEB revenues or losses. As that's a number that I consider real for accounting purposes. You lost $45,000 in actual accounting income for the year. I always consider that revenue activity as being kind of a false number because you don't get that in cash, you don't collect it from anybody, you don't bill anybody. Just like way back in 2020 in the first column, you lost $441,000, or I should say the balance went down $441,000, which means you had that in additional expense. And that additional expense would have been, like I showed you, where the MEC money was on the indirect cost. It would have been in that portion because you're not going to run that through your indirect cost rate because that'll just skyrocket out of control. And again, it's not real money. You didn't spend that $441,000. So I'd just like to segregate what the ending balance is that shows up in the statements versus what the real balance is, which is number 2. The indirect cost rate is down 15% from the year before, kind of driven by the higher direct salaries that you had in the denominator. It's kind of been trending in different directions. There's been, which I'd like to see is kind of stability across, let's say 125 across all of them as opposed to, up 20, down 15. It's nice to see that, but you can only control what you can control. So. Now the next page is the indirect cost sheet, and we're just going to pick out a couple of indirect costs. Now this is the retiree health insurance, which is number 4, and what this represents is the actual premiums that are paid. And obviously the way the agency is running, that it continues to be sustainable, that without putting money away, you still can fund the retiree health insurance, which is, you can see, kind of nudging up just a little bit every year as additional people retire. Now the next one is consultants. You'll see that. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's quite a dramatic increase from 2023. You engaged a grant writer who performed a considerable amount of work that could not be charged to grants. So that was somebody attempting to get you grants, and obviously you can't charge that to grants, even if you win it. Now at this particular point in time, I would like to suggest that the presentation per se of the audit is finished because I want to have an additional commentary after this and discuss 2 final matters in this last conversation that I have with you. So now would like to suggest a vote on the acceptance of the audit so that the date statements are available for issuance as noted in footnote 20 on page 24 can be changed. What we do is you've got a draft document that was given to you. So you have the meeting, you vote to accept it. I then change the dates to today, and then I'll work with Chris to file the data collection form that we have to get into the federal government by March 31st. And I'm looking to try to get that accomplished tomorrow afternoon.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. Rebecca Bielecki.
To accept as presented?
Accept the draft audit as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Cunningham.
Is there any other discussion? Jason, can you take the vote, please?
Alan Pease.
Aye.
Amanda Reed.
Aye.
Barbara Yoakum.
Aye.
Doug Thornton.
Aye.
Jeff Tillotson.
Tillotson, aye.
Mike Corbacero.
Aye.
Kathy Norton. Kathy Norton. All right, we're going to move on. Kyle Nardowitz.
Aye.
Laura Schifrin.
Aye.
Peter Cunningham.
Cunningham, aye.
Rebecca Bielecki.
Aye.
Robert Schwartz,
Schwartz, aye.
and we'll come back one more time, see if Kathy Norton. That's it.
Okay, I still see her on the screen though. Okay, thank you very much, Jason, and everyone else, and Roland as well.
I have some additional commentary, Laura, if you don't
Okay,
mind.
I was just going to ask. Go ahead.
Okay. I assume that you're aware that I am effectively retiring as your auditor. And what I would like to do is recommend a new audit firm. They are formerly Anstis and Company out of Lowell. They have since merged with an entity called Grassi Advisors, which is nothing more than an umbrella entity for CPA firms who want to have access to services or people that have extra expertise that they don't have. Anstis is a pretty good-sized company. I think there are between 45 and 50 people that work there. And so they just feel that there are probably things coming up on their plate that maybe it's international or maybe national or SEC or something that they can't do, that if they can get involved with an umbrella entity like this, then they're sharing resources. And but even as large as they are, they have a segregated governmental and nonprofit arm to them. They're experienced with regional planning agencies as they're already auditing NIMCOG and Martha's Vineyard. I was kind of distressed when they got Martha's Vineyard because I would have loved a week down the Cape, but that's all right. And they're also going to be doing CMRPC and MVPC. They've already decided that they're going to go along with them. So I think, like I say, I would recommend, I mean, you can go put it out to bid, you can handle it however you want, but finding people that have experience in this area is going to be difficult. They function with the same software. They know the same underlying legislation that you operate under. So I think it probably would be a wise move to do that. Now, that being said, I'm not totally stepping away. I have indicated to the commissions that I'm retiring from that I'll be available to consult if you have any interest, whether it be on accounting topics, helping you prepare your statements for the next auditors, or whatever. Now, I wanted to bring up the two final topics and that we've been going on year after year after year.
Hold on 1 second, Roland. Peter Cunningham had his hand up. I don't know, he must have a question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
just real quickly, and do we and you I guess referenced it a little bit. Is this something we need to go out to bid on, or not?
There's a way around it if you'd like.
Excuse me, Peter. I think we can discuss that with Glenn. Could you let Roland finish his presentation? Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Where was it? Now, OPEB. We've been talking about that one for a while, the post-employment benefits, where you would be setting up, we have set aside money, I should say, in an account that you're going to pay the retirement benefits out of for people, the health benefits. And I've always said that, well, you've done better off than the other commissions who had funded it way back when they had plans earlier on than you guys had adopted one. And they have a lot of money sitting in there that is unavailable to them. And some of it is significant. But I've always said, why do that at this point? You've got enough set aside. But I've kind of just giving you an option of another position that I would be taking. Not the auditor anymore. I'm free to speak however I want. And that I see maybe a possible purpose of setting up a trust fund and maybe funding it at a 2-year level. So that would be, you saw the money was up to about $45,000. So if you put $90,000 into it, you don't have to commit yourself every year. You don't have to fund it. The only reason I would do that is it shows that you're committed to that benefit to the employees. Because if somebody leaves and kind of look at it and say, well, how do I have a guarantee that I'm going to be able to get this money when I retire, that this benefit is going to be available to me? I'm going to submit my health insurance bill to you, and you're going to take care of it. That, to me, it's a little bit of a commitment. $90,000 is a lot to put away. The funds are limited, and the funds are going to be potentially even more limited when I get to the next issue. So I just offer that as a comment. The next issue, obviously, is the state retirement one, and this has been a troubling problem, which I wish, they would have resolved this, because it would have been nice for me to stop talking about it. But what I've done is I've made some impact of what the settlements are, and I've given you a worst case scenario and the proposed settlement, which is a little bit lower. You don't have to bring that up now. But what it was at the beginning when they were sending you out those letters, the comment that the feds made to the state was they're not following Chapter 32 in that if you're not contributing, then you have to reimburse the retirement people for whatever payments that they're making. Now you can see per the letters, the second line, that what they're indicating in those letters is that the state has been paying that kind of money on your behalf to the retirement. And they were looking for that money, obviously maybe coming to a little bit of a realization that this ain't going to happen. Now, I had made the same schedule for another commission that I reported on last week. And where I say not reported, they had an individual who actually was their prior administrator who was not even listed in their letter as they're paying his retirement, which is kind of absurd. But I looked at the list, and as near as I can tell, everybody that should be on there is on there, so there isn't anybody else missing. Now what you do with that is you add the first couple of lines, and you come down to what your adjusted indirect costs are. If you had to make those payments, and that became an eligible cost into your indirect cost reporting. So the adjusted indirect costs would go up to $1.3 million. The direct payrolls are right on the sheets that you have that you would have seen earlier if you had those 5-year schedules. So what it's done is it has taken the original rate, let's say in 2024 of 138, that would be 172. Now you can see how it goes in earlier years, 153 to 195. The cap on state indirect cost rates is 155. So you've got 4 out of 5 years there that you would have maxed out at 155 and not been able to recover anything above that. Now that's the initial thrust of the case that they put out there. And you can see the last line at the bottom, cash contribution required. That's over $1 million when you add it across. You don't have that kind of money. And you would never recover that kind of money from contracts, because a lot of contracts you have are pretty close to break even. So it would be difficult to get any of that money recovered because you can't get the additional revenue to do it. And I can't imagine the communities would say, yeah, why don't we just get assessed for an extra $300,000 a year, and we'll take care of it for you. I wouldn't see that coming. Plus it'd be a violation of 2.5. Probably have to get legislation for that. Now what I want to do is go down to the next one, which is the proposed settlement that I've heard that we've been discussing for a while, and that is 5% of payroll. So obviously the numbers are a lot lower than what they were on the payments per the letters. So the indirect costs, while still high, are not as dramatic as the others were. For 24, you go from 138 to 146, 153 to 163. So now you've only got a couple of years. Well, actually, you've only got 1 year that's above the state limit of 155. But again, you're still looking that the cash contribution requirement is $300,000. And if you're unable to recoup that money through contracts, you're going to be in a difficult situation. I saw your cash report at the beginning, indicating about $700,000 of money, but you've got to remember that I believe it's about $350,000 of that is tied up in the revolving loan fund. And so that money really is not necessarily available to you. It's available for other opportunities to, fix up landfills and so on, the things that have been ruined by people just polluting polluting them and things, ways that they probably shouldn't have, oil and gas and all that stuff. We had one up here that was quite famous, the Beatty site, which was just a real fiasco. But so this is a difficult situation for MRPC, because even at 5%, it's a difficult road for you guys to handle. And I know if is Glenn here? I don't see him. Not yet.
I am here.
Glenn is here.
Oh, you are? I was going to say you were up in the far left and you disappeared. Okay. No, I know we've been talking about this, Glenn, for years. You've been obviously involved in this process, and fighting back on it is a challenge. And to me, the only avenue I see for MRPC to say that they've won on this is if the state continues what they were doing for the last 50 years, and that's paying your retirement money.
Right.
Does anybody have questions, comments on this, or Glenn, you want to follow up on that? Or
I'm happy to, if that's okay, Laura and Roland. This all comes down to the state legislature, which has competing pieces of legislation in front of it. I think it's something services committee. It might be municipal services committee in the House. If I'm wrong, I'll correct that at another meeting. But it has a piece of legislation from the Treasury filed by the former director, Favorito, Nick somebody. Anyway, and then they have the MARPA legislation, which says, we'll pay a percentage, up to 5%. And the long and the short of it is there are 7,000 or 8,000 pieces of legislation that are filed every year in the Commonwealth. 200 to 400 actually get passed into law. And even though there has been a lot of discussion on both competing pieces of legislation, we basically see no end in sight. They're in a new session, a new 2-year session right now, and the bill will be refiled to protect us in our best interest versus the state treasury bill, which wants us to pay a lot more. And we have been fighting the good fight to try not to pay the full bill, because that would just put every RPA out of business. We wouldn't be able to write the check. So if they actually were send us an invoice and say it, we would say, okay, well, we'll just shutter the agency and everybody's going to find new jobs across the state, which would be horrific. So that's the status of the legislation. We're all hoping it gets resolved in this 2-year session, but we've been hoping that for about 6 years.
Well, I think, Glenn, one thing that's a positive you can take out of it, out of the inaction, is it's not costing you anything.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
But is there a point in time when MRPC does become responsible for all that money that they're saying?
When the legislation passes and the governor signs an act that says you'll pay a percentage of payroll, and I've been advocating, 0 for 10 years or more. And, generally speaking, MARPA has agreed, the executive directors of the regional planning agencies and COGS have agreed absolutely no more than 5%. And even that's a stretch. We won't know until the legislation gets passed, Madam Chair.
Okay. Roland, anything else?
No. I just, like I said, I wanted to cover the last two things that I kind of, particularly this one, I hoped was going to have been settled in my lifetime, but apparently not. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Madam Chair, may I say one thing?
Yes.
Roland did give you notice that he's retiring. I can tell you that Roland has made my job a lot easier. Roland has been auditing the MRPC for longer than I want to admit. If he wants to admit the years, that's fine, but I won't do that and embarrass him. But he has been an absolute steady force to assist us through so many things, and he does more than audits. We do call him for counsel in between the audit seasons. Roland, I don't know if we'll ever get to shake hands, but I do hope you and your family are well. I want to see you again. I'm glad you're going to be doing some consulting and not fully retired, because we can use you in the future. But thank you for everything you've done for our organization. Thank you, sir.
And
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Roland.
I think we all thank you and enjoy.
All right.
Okay. So we have done that motion that we needed to do. And has the senator joined us yet?
He's there.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, and timing's great. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
The floor is actually yours.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Well, great to be at the MRPC meeting, and my deepest apologies for, did I come on?
You are on. Yes,
Okay.
you are on. And actually, it was perfect timing because we just finished the item before we had you on the agenda. So it's perfect.
Oh, great. I just wanted to apologize because I know I missed the meeting last time, and as some people know, I drove all the way to Leominster thinking the meeting was in person, so my apologies. But yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I want to give an update about the state of the healthcare situation, if you will, for the Neshoba Valley area. 15 communities, obviously many of them in North Central Mass, some towns that are generally more described as the Neshoba Valley area that I represent, including Ayer, Harvard, Littleton, and Devens. And really just wanted to say is that I think things are still a bit in flux. There's the Neshoba Valley Health Working Group, which is continuing to meet, and we're actually hoping it will continue its work, though a lot of the analysis of the healthcare gaps, not just with respect to the closure of the Neshoba Valley Medical Center, but really just the healthcare needs in general for that region. So that's being done in collaboration with the Governor Healy Driscoll administration. And then, of course, we were very pleased to hear that the UMass Memorial was offering to build a standalone ER facility. We're certainly encouraged by that. There hasn't been a lot of information about that. I will say, someone as the state senator for Ayer and really, thinking about the region, there still really is an interest. I think it's safe to say from legislators and from a lot of the fire chiefs to have this facility at where the hospital is now. That being said, there's also a continued push that is there any way for UMass Memorial to actually purchase the Neshoba Valley Medical Center building and bring back the full hospital? And I know in many ways there's a sense that that ship has sailed, but I think we are still hopeful that the Healy Driscoll administration could provide some funds that's similar to what they did with other hospitals that remained open, that they could provide some funding, hopefully in a collaborative way with UMass Memorial to make this work. So we are working on a letter urging the governor to strongly consider that. I will say there's an incredible, and probably don't have to tell many people here, but there's an incredible amount of resentment, unfortunately, with the administration, a sense that there could have been more done. There could have been more visits by the administration to the Neshoba Valley Medical Center and the Neshoba Valley area. So that's sort of where we're at. And then the last thing is that the fire chiefs came together to request a $9.6 million operating budget to address the gaps that they're already seeing. You see continued stories, whether, Fitchburg Sentinel, Neshoba Valley Voice, even the Boston Globe, about the real healthcare gaps and just the frustrations that fire chiefs, paramedics, EMS have shuttling our constituents, shuttling patients to hospitals that are further away, of course, than where they used to. So we're hoping that that operating money could be in the FY26 budget. and myself, Senator John Cronin, and Senator Ed Kennedy, bringing some of our fire chiefs, did have a meeting with Senate Ways and Means Chairman Mike Rodrigues about a month ago that I truly think went positively. And so I remain hopeful that there can be some operating funds in the FY26 budget. But again, that's operating funds, and we recognize the real structural problem here, of course, is the closure of the Neshoba Valley Medical Center. And we continue to believe, I think it's really the legislative delegation, town officials, fire chiefs, that we've got to find a way to bring back the hospital. And we do think the administration needs to step up with more funding to make this possible with UMass Memorial. So that's my update, and happy to answer any questions. I really appreciate MRPC's interest and support on this front. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us and for the update. Any commissioners have any questions for the senator?
Well, I do briefly. Peter Cunningham from Groton, and Senator Eldridge, I just want to thank you so much for your advocacy on this. I know you've been there from the beginning and certainly trying to keep the hospital from closing, and then all the efforts subsequent to that. We have been very disappointed, I know, in Groton with the reaction of the Healy Driscoll administration, and recently it sounds like they're looking to close down the working group. And I don't think that work is done until we have something, whether UMass comes forward with a standalone site and that's up and running, or whether or not the current hospital is somehow reopened. And it's disappointing that building is just sitting there, and the people that own it, I think it's the Apollo
yes.
group that owns it. I can't understand, since it's zoned for medical, I can't understand what they hope to gain by hanging on to it, particularly if something else opens up. But nonetheless, that's a game that's probably going on some different level. But it's been very disappointing. The letter that you referenced was sent up, and our fire chief signed on to it, along with all the other local chiefs, yourself, Rep. Scarsdale, everybody did. That was at the end of December, and we've heard nothing back yet from the administration on that, or whether they're going to respond to that request for $9.6 million to help augment our first responders and their ability to respond to situations that come up. So it's certainly a real problem. But again, thank you for your advocacy, and this is not the last of it. We certainly will be more down the road.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that.
Any other questions for the senator? From staff, any questions?
Kyle Nardowitz.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I was wondering if state is doing anything to prevent what happened to that hospital happening to some of the others in the area.
Great question. This closure happened at the same time that there was significant healthcare legislation being taken up in the House and Senate. I will say it was mostly focused at either limiting or sort of having a further review of any hospital that's owned by a venture capital, because of course that's, Steward was owned by venture capital money, by a venture capital firm, and I would argue that was part of why it collapsed so disastrously. So we did pass legislation that has a stronger review by the state for any hospital that's owned by a venture capital firm. So I think that's a positive step. But I will say, and if anyone came to Devon's for that massive DPH public hearing about, is the Neshoba Valley Medical Center a core essential service, which of course it is for the region. Yeah. And, DPH did what they were required to do and had the hearing, but basically had no teeth and didn't even declare it as a core essential service because they knew that the hospital was literally within weeks of closing. So I think we need to strengthen the DPH's power with respect to any hospital, to your point, because it's not just, sadly, it's not just the venture capital owned or for-profit owned hospitals. It's those that are run by nonprofits. It's those that are, as we're seeing, recently with the governor's budget, essentially state hospitals, if you will, that are at the risk of closing. Of course, we have to reform the whole system, but But I do think I'm hopeful that we can take a closer look at what is the fiscal analysis, if you will, of every hospital to make sure that doesn't happen to any other hospital. So I appreciate your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Anyone else, please?
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes, Glenn.
Hi, Senator. Thanks
Glenn.
again for coming. I really appreciate your time tonight. Very, very briefly, Senator, I did receive an email yesterday from Kim Craven from of Townsend, and she indicates very briefly in her email there's a push by the state to disband the Neshoba Valley Medical Center Hospital Working Group and subcommittees. So she's put out an email and a call for people to write letters to the governor. Can you comment on that at all, Senator? Thank you for your time.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen a couple of those calls to action, which I greatly appreciate. So we, and I'm a member, every legislator in the region is a part of the working group. So we are hoping for it to continue. To be blunt, I will say that while I appreciate all the work of the Neshoba Valley Health Working Group, I also feel like ultimately, it's not going to replace a hospital. So let's get to the real problem and bring back the hospital. But the working group has done a lot of outreach, done a lot of great work, and I do think to the point of the email you received is that the worry is that if the working group goes away, that's one less piece of leverage, one less piece of communication, if you will, with the Healy Driscoll administration to apply some pressure. So we're hoping that will continue, but also I would say the more urgent level is let's find a way, and we understand there's some confidential or closed door negotiations with, Apollo Medical, as far as we don't know what's happening there, that owns the Neshoba Valley Medical Center property. But, let's make sure that the Healy Driscoll administration is making clear, as I believe Governor Healy did say when she came out, is that if there was a legitimate, hospital operator, which, we do believe UMass Memorial is, let's make the numbers work so that the hospital comes back.
Thank you, Senator. If I may follow up, Madam Chair, with another question. So, Senator, I'm sure you're aware of the Northern Tier High-Speed Rail Corridor study.
Yes.
Completed in November, and Congressman McGovern, several of your colleagues, including Senator Joe Comerford and several state reps, met in Greenfield last week, and we discussed the next steps. And basically, this is in MassDOT's hands to apply to federal transit to ask for high-speed rail corridor identification program. And for me, this is about economic impact and other things. That rail opens up a corridor for housing, affordable housing development, for more jobs. And that's where I'm ending on the jobs and the economic impact. There was certainly an adverse impact on the health of the 17 towns that were served by Neshoba Valley Medical. We will do everything at MRPC on Northern Tier Rail and on economic impact. If we can do an economic impact analysis on Neshoba Valley, we'd love to be able to do that. We'll pursue funding. We might need a support letter. We might need, hey, point us in the right direction. But we would certainly love to be able to do that, because there's the health impact, which is so severe, and obviously the economic impact of the loss of jobs, and then the spin-off effects, and then the fire department's need. So you may be hearing from me about some funding.
Sure.
So it's just a kind of a commercial. Thank you for your time again.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. Yeah, 600 jobs that we're at Neshoba Valley Medical Center, and the Northern Tier Rail fully support that. I've worked very close with Senator Comfort to get some of my towns to write letters of support for that rail. So that would be incredible for the Neshoba Valley region as well.
Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us. We appreciate the update.
Thank you so much. Great to see you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamie. Good to see you.
Okay, so next on our agenda, do we have any guests with us? I didn't see George. Is there anyone else that has something they would like to bring before MRPC? I thought I saw Irene Congdon, but I don't see her now.
She was in here and she left. She must have just been interested in the Neshoba Valley.
Oh, Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. Okay, Glenn, administrative matters.
Very, very quickly, I do want to pull in Holly to help me with this. So 7.1, call for participation on the nominating committee action requested. Tonight, the Chair Laura Schifrin shall call for nominations to the nominating committee. Holly, can you help me out before we ask for Laura to make the call on the 3 or 4 steps that we go through March, April, May, until we elect a slate in June? Can you kind of fill in some blanks so we can give Laura some background and the other commissioners, new or old? Thank you, Holly.
Sure. So the first thing is we need to create a nominating committee. So we need, Glenn, how many people do you want for that? 3?
Historically, it's been 3. 3 is plenty with staff support.
So if anybody is interested, please reach out to me. I will assist with reaching out to people to see if they would be interested in holding a position for chair, vice chair, treasurer, etc. But if you do have an interest, please let us know. You can let us know tonight, or you can reach out to me via email if you'd like. At our next meeting, we will present the names of, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me grab the.
So the next meeting in April, we actually appoint the nominating committee, the 3 members to the nominating committee. And we need at least one of those 3 to have served, I believe, on the nominating committee in the past, if I remember correctly. Happy to be corrected. Thank you.
Okay, if I may, I will give you a little bit of information regarding myself. I was elected as a select person here in Townsend, and also served on planning and MRPC. I'm not going to be able to be these 3 people next year. So I am happy to serve on nominating if the board so wishes, and look forward to working with a couple others of you to try to get a great board for next year.
Thank you, Laura. So if there's 2 other people that would like to either volunteer now or, like I said, you can reach out to me next week or over the next couple of weeks to let me know. There's one time that we will meet together to discuss who we'd like to bring before the board at the next meeting to be nominated to hold a position. And that's pretty much the job.
Holly, was there anyone that wanted to make a comment about this from the commissioners? Hearing and seeing none. Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me, Laura.
Yes, Guy.
Will put my name forward to be on the nominating committee. I've been on it a few times, so for next month, if we don't have enough people.
Thank you, Guy.
Okay. Thank you, Guy. Okay. So next is 7.2.
Yeah, Laura.
Peter.
Excuse me, Laura. Yeah, Peter Cunningham from Groton.
Yes, Peter.
I'm willing to participate too if it's the the pleasure of the commissioners.
Okay, thank you. That's on the nominating committee, correct? Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Guy. Sounds great. So 7.2, remote meeting participation legislation. Approve of the letter to the legislative delegation. Action required. Glenn, would you take this, please?
Absolutely. Thank you. Very briefly, we touched on this issue last Thursday. I suggested that we send a letter to the legislative delegation requesting a permanent solution to allow televideo conferencing virtual public meetings to continue on a permanent basis. This change, I'm sure we all remember, happened under the COVID-19 pandemic, so we could function as governmental units to allow remote meetings. participation by local officials and inhabitants could zoom in, essentially, to use the nomenclature. So this is the letter below. This is the draft, and in italics. If anybody wants to do any wordsmithing, Barbara Yoakum is my chief editor, so I really love it when Barbara gives me some counsel. So Barbara, if you have any edits or anybody else does collectively or grammar tomorrow by email, I'd love to have them. But it's just very simple. It basically says, on behalf of the commission, I'm writing today to thank you, for allowing this. We know that this was launched at the height of the pandemic. We know the current extension ends on March 31. Not knowing if it'll be extended, basically makes planning planning tasks very difficult. We're asking you to support the relevant legislation in the House and in the Senate, filed by the respective reps and senators, to make this a permanent solution. And then the letter just goes on to say the flexibility has really helped for local officials and public and it's actually increased participation, we feel, from residents, from inhabitants, and from residents. Jason, could you scroll down to the last part of the letter, please, dear sir? And it just rounds out by saying, I think there's one more paragraph or two. The flexible meeting schedule is critical. We really hope you do this permanently. So if the letter's okay, I'd like to put this on letterhead. If I can scoot into the office tomorrow and sign it. At the outside, it would be Monday, to get it out in email to our legislative delegation, meaning our state senators and our state reps. I think the last thing I'd want to say on this is I think I touched on this last Thursday at an extraordinary meeting of the commission. Thank you to commissioners who attended that meeting. But for those of you who were not there, this is the third, we're into the third extension, and the legislature is looking at a fourth extension or a permanent solution. At the MARPA meeting in February, the governmental affairs staff for Metropolitan Area Planning Council, or MAPC, felt that there was a snowball's chance that this would be made permanent in this session or soon, and that hopefully we still need to work on this. We still need to hammer it home that this needs to happen for those of you who would like a permanent solution to this. So I've done my due diligence and drafted a letter that MAPC provided, and I tailored it to our needs. So thank you if there are any questions or comments. And then I believe below there's there may be a resolution with this too.
There is a resolution.
Sign the letter. And I turn it back to you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. So do any commissioners have any comments?
Okay. Peter Canadian Groton. I fully support this 100%. Our board, actually our select board, this past week, we drafted a similar letter and sent it off. So I'm fully in support of this. And the other, it came about maybe because of COVID, but the other thing it's done, the effect, and we've seen it in our town boards and committees, is that more people are able to participate. It's much easier to get participation. It's certainly true for this group, MRPC. I recall years ago when I first was on the select board and was a representative of Percy, going to meetings over at the Mart building over on the Pittsburgh Leominster line there, and it was quite a commitment to do that. So it's been a real enhancement to encourage participation in groups like this. Fully support
it. Madam Chair.
Robert, did you want to say something?
That was Jeff.
That was Jeff. Sorry, Jeff.
Thank you. I was wondering, Robert. Yeah.
Sorry.
Jeff Tillotson here.
Yes.
I fully support this also. And one of the things that we've noticed here in Ayer is we've got a lot of, it's difficult to get volunteers. And, we were talking about the nominating committee a few minutes ago. I have meetings every night a week right now. I would love to help on one more thing because that's the way I am. But with the ability to do virtual only meetings, our CPC meets, our Affordable Housing Trust meets, we're just getting stuff done here in Ayer, and more people are joining. It's a much easier lift to say to somebody, you really want to get involved? We've got a great slot for you. So I don't know if it's a hard thing to get across, but it really has made our lives here in Ayer a heck of a lot easier. And we've got college teachers who get out of work at 5 o'clock, drive an hour. They would never come to a meeting, but they're fully engaged. They're running a college department, but they're fully engaged because we can do virtual. And that's why I support this wholeheartedly.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm hoping that, I know Townsend is, we're also sending a letter here to talk about the same thing that Peter and Jeff did. You know, we have a lot more we don't have enough. We still have vacancies, but we do have a lot more than we did before. The only suggestion that I would make on the letter is also, I've been on MRPC for probably 20 years, maybe missed a couple years there. And it was quite a feat to go to Fitchburg and be in person all the time. What I was thinking of, could you add a comment regarding the increase in attendance that MRPC has derived because of the hybrid meetings?
Yeah, definitely.
I think you don't have to do numbers, but if you give the percentage of increase, just in a brief sentence, to show them that this really makes us work a lot more efficiently. That's the only suggestion I would have. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, then. Be it resolved that the Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission authorizes its executive director to send the above letter with a couple of tweets to all representatives and senators in the Montechusett region no later than Monday, March 10th. Is there a motion?
So moved, Tillotson.
Second, Cunningham.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Jason, please take the vote.
Alan Pease,
Aye.
Amanda Reed,
Aye.
Barbara Yocum,
Aye. It looks good, Glenn.
Doug Thornton,
Aye.
Jeff Tillotson,
Tillotson, aye.
Guy Corbacero,
Aye.
Kathy Norton,
Aye.
Kyle Nardowitz,
Aye.
Laura Schifrin,
Aye.
Peter Cunningham,
Yeah, Cunningham, aye.
Robert Schwartz,
Schwartz, aye.
and Karen Chapman has her hand raised.
Karen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Further up in the letter, there's a typo. I'm excited that Barbara didn't find it and I did.
Congratulations. Glenn, make
Thanks, Karen.
It says MRCPC in the first paragraph.
Karen, didn't you know I changed the name of the agency? So you couldn't find us.
That was going to be MOUSE, Karen.
That's more like it.
Thank you, Karen.
Good job. Good job. Anyone else? Jason, please take the vote. Oh, no, we just had the vote.
We did it. Yep.
Okay, we're done. 7.3, Glenn?
Yes, very quickly. I mentioned the Northern Tier passenger rail study when Senator Eldridge was in the room. So a meeting was requested by Senator Jim McGovern, Congressman Jim McGovern. Excuse me, I just promoted him too. And he asked MassDOT to talk to local and regional officials. That bulleted list. It's the highlights of the people that I happen to recognize in the room. Jason could just scroll down to the paragraph that starts with an additional 50 people packed the public meeting room at the Ulver Transit Center in Greenfield. MassDOT Secretary Tibbetts and her staff attended to explain the next steps. And that the next step is basically, there are several steps in this, and Brian's going to be able to explain this more. And Brian, chime in when I say stuff wrong or reinforce if I say anything right, that the MassDOT has to apply for a corridor identification development program. The notice of opportunity for that may be published this fall. We are all standing by to see if the federal administration actually issues a notice for states to apply for corridor identification. We learned that 60 corridors were identified and approved by Federal Railroad last year. And this would to designate a corridor basically from Fitchburg to Albany, New York for high-speed rail. The gist of the program, if nobody's seen the report, please be advised if you just Googled it, and I thought I put the link in the narrative above, pardon me, that this talks about creating high-speed rail from Fitchburg, I'm going to say past my house here in Templeton, that you'd have, speeds well in excess of 50 miles an hour, probably up to 80. That would be electrified service through North Adams, Williamstown to Albany along this rail. Right now, my wife and I watch the freight trains go at about 25 to 35 miles an hour. This is a $1 to nearly $2 billion proposed project. This is about a 10-year endeavor to do corridor identification, and then MassDOT would have to do cost estimates, then design, and then there's a multi-step, multi-milestone process to get this to happen. I will close by saying that the positive impacts that I won't see in my career, but if this can be accomplished, the positive impacts are stunning. We've seen the projections, and you can see them in the rail study if you click on the link. The thousands of people on a weekly basis that would basically use this rail service from basically Albany to Boston along the northern tier would open up the area to increase transportation, increase jobs, access, open up this region and the northern tier of Massachusetts, basically from Fitchburg or Gardner to North Adams, Williamstown. Outside of the Berkshires, we have a lot of trees. We can handle more economic development. We can handle more properly planned housing and economic development growth. We can handle more citizens. We can handle more jobs, and we need all of those. So that's the study. Jason, thanks a lot for pulling that up. I do appreciate that. And there is, toward the end of the study, or maybe in the middle, there are 1 or 2 pages that summarize the 6 proposals. And if you can't read the whole thing, I respect that. It's 100 or 200 pages long. But if you can zero in on, it's like a blue table, blue background in black text that talks about the costs and the benefits by having a certain number of stops. It's kind of like the Gardner, Athol, Greenfield, North Adams connection, or just the North Adams, Greenfield, Athol connection. But the numbers are stunning. It's a good read. I know you're all busy, but if you can read it and absorb it, understand this is something that all of you get to work on the next 10 years. And I wholeheartedly support this. So this is more FYI, please be aware of this. Brian, did you want to chime in on any of this, please? Because I'm way out of my depth with transportation.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think I mentioned back in the fall, we've been involved in a working group with this study over the last few years. Back in the fall, when the draft came out, the MPO made an official comments on the study, and we've been pretty well involved the whole time. But certainly, in support of a few of the alternatives that were mentioned within the study, advocating for stations in Gardner and Athol. Not all the scenarios included that. I think that was one of the main points that we made. But certainly we'd be on board with whatever happens from this point forward. What kind of chance does it have at the federal level right now? On top of all the other legacy project priorities in the state, I'm not really sure, but we're on board for the long run. We've been involved from the beginning, so it'd be interesting to see what happens.
I think that's all we have on this item, Madam Chair.
I just had a quick question. Yeah, Glenn?
Yes, sir. There you go.
Yeah, I just had, this goes, I mean, the rail corridor is already there. This is the old Fitchburg Railroad that went through the Hoosick Tunnel out to Albany, right?
Yes, sir. Same right of way, which is an accurate rail.
So it means enhancements to that to get it up to speed to handle that. Yeah.
About $1 billion worth. Yes, sir. About $1 billion worth. Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. That doesn't have a resolution. For whatever reason, are we at 7.4?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
The bottom line here is that we have some technology that has outlived their generally accepted useful lives, and that's about approximately 3/4 of the staff's laptops/computers and the plotter. And I'm sure most of you know, if not all of you, but the plotter is what Jason and Kayla get to print out the hard copy maps for client communities and our state and federal agencies as well. The reality is that we can have a perfect storm where let's say a laptop has a useful life of about, I'm going to defer to Jason on technical, but if a laptop has a useful life of 3 years, I think we're at 5. If a plotter has a useful life of X years, I think we're at about 8. Jason, am I close on the numbers, sir? Before I go on, I see a nod. Yeah? Okay, thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. What I have done, the second paragraph, I had wanted to purchase furniture this year, wanted to do it last year, wanted to do it this year. I've shelved that. I've prioritized basically to get the tech upgraded. Jason, if you could pull down to see all the 3 bullets, because the meat and potatoes in the resolution is really here in the numbers here. So Jason's done a lot of work to say that the computers will cost us at an estimate. He's completed procurement, but to get the 3 quotes, about $16,000 and change. So let's say 17 for budgeting purposes. A new plotter would be $65.83, say $7,500 for budgeting purposes. I'm not trying to cushion budgets here, but I always find that when we buy tech or we buy anything, there's always an unforeseen something. You might need an extra, widget, an item, extra paper for a plotter, whatever it is, buying some backup printer heads, an extra laptop or something. So basically those are the costs, and the combined total funds. We need to make all the tech acquisitions around $24,500. The relevant FY25 budget line item, furniture and equipment, is its title, is at about $20,000. We haven't spent any money out of that in the 2/3 of the way, almost 3/4 of the way into the fiscal year. So I'm recommending that we take the furniture equipment line item of 20 and we increase it to 24.5. And if you could scroll down for the rest of the narrative, please, Jason. If the commission approved our request, what we would do, we make sure we follow all the applicable federal and state procurement statutes and regs. Jason's already done that. I've seen the procurement. I think we're fine. We'll double check it on Monday, or tomorrow, I should say. The source of the funds to transfer from, we have a projected surplus of almost $77,000 right now for fiscal 25. And that's, a projected surplus between, today and this June 30th. So about 4 months are left. So we transfer $4,500 out of that into the furniture line item. We'd have the magic 24.5 we need to make the purchases. And then the surplus would decrease, the surplus cash amount would decrease to $72,498. And there's the resolution, and I'm happy to answer questions as needed. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So be it resolved that the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission authorizes the transfer of $4,500 out of surplus cash into the furniture equipment line item to pay for new computers and a plotter as described above by management. Is there a motion?
Laura, may I ask a question? It's Barbara.
We can motion and second and have discussion.
Okay, thanks.
I'll offer a motion to approve the resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Guy Corbacero.
Second, okay. Discussion. Barbara?
Yeah, Barbara. I'm curious, are you using Apple products or desktop, Microsoft? What kind of technology are you using?
We have primarily laptops, and they're at Dell using the Windows 11 operating.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, Jason, we can't hear you very well.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're currently we have laptops, especially because we work, or a lot of us work remotely a few days a week, but we use laptops, Windows 11 operating systems primarily. There are a couple of desktops in the building, but those will be going away.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing, seeing none. Jason, would you take the vote, please?
Helen Pease?
Aye.
Amanda Reed?
Aye.
Barbara Yoakum?
Aye.
Doug Thornton?
Aye.
Jeff Tillotson?
Tillotson, aye.
Guy Corbacero?
Corbacero, aye.
Kathy Norton?
Aye.
Kyle Nardowitz,
Aye.
Laura Schifrin,
Aye.
Peter Cunningham,
Cunningham, aye.
and Robert Schwartz.
Schwartz, aye.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everyone. Glenn, 7.5, information only.
Sure. Just a couple of notes, just to reinforce that it is budget season, and we are in the middle of that. So I've had the good fortune to meet with Chris McNamara, our fiscal, Karen, and I need to meet with Brian individually. And then after those meetings, then within about a week or two, basically this March, we'll have the management team meeting, and we'll go everything in a group session. And basically, we'll provide you with a draft budget, the commissioners, you, at the May 8th meeting for final adoption on June 5th. On that note, on meetings, commissioners' meetings of July 3rd, August 7th, September 4th, I just wanted to highlight it because next thing we know, it'll be June, and I hope so because I'm sick of the cold. So this year, the July meeting of the commissioners will fall a day before the National Independence holiday. So in other words, it would be on the 3rd of the Thursday, and then the Friday would be the 4th. So I'm not asking for any decisions tonight, just please be aware. Sometimes we hold the meeting of the 2nd or 3rd right before the 4th. Sometimes commissioners decide, well, it's that peak season, we'll just do it the following. That's up to you. Just know that we'll seek guidance from you folks in the future, no later than the May meeting. And then I think the last sentence was there. I think that's the last sentence, Jason. The next summer meetings will be held August 7th and then September 4th. National Labor Day falls on the September 1st. Just a point of information. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? Hearing none. Now the department updates. 8.1, GIS.
I have no new updates at this time.
Thank you, Jason. Planning and development, Karen.
I don't have anything. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay. And Brian, 8.3, transit.
I guess 3 for 3. No updates tonight.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for all the work that you do. And anybody else have something they'd like to bring up?
Yes, yeah, I would. Glenn, can you give us, is there any update on where things stand with the, I guess, the situation regarding federal money and grants and loans? I know I thought I saw something, a news story that said that the judge down in Rhode Island had continued his stay of the withholding of money by the federal government. But is there anything new to report on that and where that's at?
I've not seen it. So that's the last I saw, Peter, also, was that the temporary restraining order would at some point become a stay of execution, then it would go to court, unless pause memos were withdrawn. Honestly, Peter, my head is swimming with so much that's going on. I have put an internal pause on having our staff charged to the EPA brownfields contract, which is relatively minimal. I mean, we have another 2.5 years on that project, and it's about 200 hours of staff time. So it's kind of like a dripping water faucet. So that's not really a big hit right now. I've told the consultant, and Peter, you and I talked about slowing down, right, pausing the brownfield site assessments. I don't think that's going to last very long. I haven't seen anything else about other programs other than Karen emailed the Federal Economic Development Administration, because this is the time of year we get an invitation to submit the annual Economic Development Administration Economic Adjustment Assistance, or EAA, annual grant that we get $70,000 for. And the response from EDA was that we're not sending out an invitation now. We don't know if the program will be reauthorized or refunded. So that's the most up to date I can give you on that specific program. The common theme here is that federal contractors, entities like us that receive federal funding, we are not receiving official decrees on if a program will be halted, funded, stopped. I get through the grapevine from, I can't say who told me, but I get through the grapevine about EPA brownfields that the new secretary likes brownfields, but we're not really sure if we should proceed with brownfields programming. So, nobody's putting anything in writing to say that program's okay. The EDA, isn't saying, well, we can't. They've said, well, we can't invite you because we don't know if there'll be a program, but nobody's saying if the program will be reauthorized or not. So, I guess the bottom line is that, in one word, unknown. No one really knows what program is being fully funded or not, other than the very specific directives that have come out of the White House for anybody that's got a DEI job doesn't have a job anymore. And then, and then there's all, honestly, and I can't keep up with all of the, memos that go out and then they're retracted.
Yep.
And then someone issues something on X, formerly Twitter, about, hey, federal employees, thou shall do that. And then that's walked back the day later. But it's a swirling, incredible maelstrom, and a tornado and a hurricane and a tsunami that's all going on at once. So the bottom line is that there's virtually nothing official on federal funding sources other than what you see in the media about, well, will that university receive funding for its scientific studies on climate change? We did receive a document that basically said, thou shalt not use the words climate change anymore, but you can use weather pattern change and alteration.
Yeah.
So we can use synonyms to real science, but we can't use the real science word because the powers that be don't like that science for whatever reason. But there's just so little on federal. And I should close by saying that the management team and I and others, non-management, we've talked a lot about, pivoting. I look at this agency. It is a government agency. I try to run it like a business also. It is a public consulting shop, public contracting shop. And when this is the last thing I will say, when one funding source pulls back, you go after other funding sources. And so we are doing a full court press on state programs, i.e. community one-stop planning grants, and an MOOR grant, which is about a recreation grant, and an MDAR, Mass Department of Agriculture grant. So we are going to be pursuing more of those hot and heavy. So when Roland talked about, see that percentage or that big federal dollar figure in your audit, and we're about 75-25 federal to state, I want to get that 50-50 or 40 federal and 60 state in the next couple of years. So that's I'm sorry, that it's just so crazy. I don't know how to answer it other than say we don't have a lot of information, but what I do have, I've shared. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. And Laura, if I may, I just say by way of commentary, I mean, so much of what we do, what the agency does, is related to grants and to federal spending. And there's just so much uncertainty about what's going on. I have a daughter that works for the National Science Foundation down in Antarctica, and they're very much up in the air now about what's going to be happening, what the future holds. So certainly something we need to pay attention to going forward. And I think, as you say, pivoting or making plans to look elsewhere if we need to is going to be critical going forward. But thank you very much, Glenn.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? If no one else has objections, we are now at 8:32 p.m. and I will entertain a motion to adjourn, and if no one objects, we will be adjourned. Is there?
Go for it.
Okay, Guy at 8:03, and is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? Seeing, hearing none, we are adjourned at 8:33 p.m. Thank you all so much for your participation.
Yep. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.